They didn't turn him in. They didn't write a report. They didn't do anything.
This specific clip is one that shows very clearly how the Shiny Happy People producers used the Holts interview to make the Duggars look as bad and irresponsible as possible. But I'll show you how this was not what it seems at all. Shiny Happy People used the order in which they presented the interview clips as another tactic throughout their docuseries to try to paint victims and villains according to their agenda of damaging the reputation of fundamentalist Christians and homeschoolers. As you can probably tell if you're watching my videos, I'm constantly investigating and getting new information as I'm researching for Shiny Slander, the documentary to come. You can see more about that in the links below. And I have shocking news, both good and bad, about the Duggars and the Holts. I'll share that later in this video. In the docuseries, you first see the Holts acting as though they don't want to talk about the Josh incident, but reluctantly do.
When did you first find out about Josh?
Well, how deep do we go? Because that's a rabbit hole. Man, it's really twisted.
We had known him from a baby, you know, and he was our first daughter's boyfriend.
And Josh says something like, I'd like to know if I'd be able to court Kaylee for the purpose of marriage. And we said yes.
So here it looks like they were just close friends with the Duggars and knew Josh from the time he was a baby. Then he asked to court their daughter and they said yes. All that is true. But notice the very next part of the video, where it shows the date of the TV special as 2004. This special was actually released September 6th of 2004, which means it was filmed several months before that. Keep that in mind.
And we said yes.
With lead son Josh, age 16, how will the Duggars handle the delicate issue of dating?
I think that if you're going to give your heart away, you need to be giving it to someone who's going to love you and care about you, and not someone who's going to simply get carried away with their emotions.
Next, Jim Holt says they found out about Josh's behavior on March 30th of 2003. If you're having a hard time catching the timeline here, this means that a full year and a half before the special aired, the Holts knew of Josh's behavior. In fact, even before it was filmed, they knew.
So March 30th, 2003, when we found out, I went out to the field and just bawled.
What Jim Bob had said to us was, Josh, he's gotten into some trouble. You know, he's touched his sisters inappropriately.
But we found out about it when he was 15. So when were you going to tell us? And Michelle said, we weren't going to have them tell you guys at all. We were going to have Josh confess to Kaylee once they were married. And so I asked him, I said, so are you basically saying you were kind of using my daughter as like a carrot to get him to behave the right way? And he goes, well, yeah, kind of. Jim Bob had written a bill that created a sex offender website. I confronted him, I said, Jim Bob, according to your own bill that you've written and what you've told me, your son should be on it. He needs to make it right with the law because he violated the law and he needs to turn himself in. He's like, I'm getting ready to take Josh in. Would you want to go? I said, oh, yeah. So I went right with him. We met at the state trooper's office. The state trooper sat down and we told him the story. Josh told him what we thought at the time was everything he had done. He goes, I'm going to let you go this time. He said, but if you do it again, I'm really going to come down hard on you.
I found out this talk with the trooper actually happened in July of 2003. Remember, Jim Holt said they learned of Josh's behavior on March 30th of 2003. This means it was several months later that they went to the trooper. This means that they knew all about this way before the ice rink event took place. But notice the first part of this clip, Jim Holt does not have his arm around his wife. Then when the camera angle switches, he does. So look closely.
So he actually just checked him out.
Yeah, he didn't tell
Brought
him
him
that.
back.
He brought him back, and he said he wanted him there for his birthday. It was right before Jim Bob's birthday.
They didn't turn him in. They didn't write a report. They didn't do anything.
The way these clips are put together makes it seem that Bobye Holt is saying that the Duggars didn't do anything about turning in Josh for his behavior, What the Shiny Happy People producers did here was take a clip from when the Holts were discussing the state trooper and how he didn't do anything to report the behavior and etc., and made it look like they were talking about the Duggars, as if they were saying the Duggars didn't do anything about Josh's behavior when he returned. Their goal was to make the Duggars look as bad as possible, and they needed to make the Holts look good and responsible. The Holts clearly knew of Josh's behavior way before the ice rink event. The conversation where Jim Holt says Jim Bob was using Kaylee as a carrot for Josh had to have happened well before this ice rink event, several months before. And again, we're only hearing Jim Holt's interpretation of that carrot conversation. We haven't heard Jim Bob's interpretation of it. This may be complicated and seemingly irrelevant to some who are watching, but it isn't. It is another way the producers of Shiny Happy People edited interviews to make it appear that a story is one way when it is actually completely different than the way they were presenting it. And that happened a lot in this hit piece. Time after time as I dig, I find more. On a side note, I have good news and bad news. Remember in the last video I did about the Holts, I said this: in this case, I believe Bobby is doing the right thing to try to reconcile her family. And I hope she and Jim Holt will work to restore their friendship with the Duggars by apologizing for their slanderous interview on Shiny Happy People. It happened. Not only have Jim and Bobby Holt reconciled themselves together, but they have also done the right thing and apologized to the Duggars for doing the interview for Shiny Happy People. And the Duggars have forgiven them. This is a clear example of Christian behavior on both the part of the Duggars and the Holts. I am so happy to hear it. The bad news is that more court proceedings have gone on with the Holts, their older son and younger siblings. The court has removed the children from the home and placed them in the care of their older married brother. I realize this information seems tantalizing and scandalous, but this is the point at which I don't believe it's any of our business. The rest of the things going on with the Holts are not relevant to the slander of Christians and homeschoolers and has nothing to do with Shiny Happy People either. So I will not be reporting on the continuing saga of the Holt family unless it becomes relevant to the goal of exposing slander. At this point, further discussion becomes gossip. If anyone watching wants that, they will need to look at gossip channels or tabloids. I don't plan to turn this channel into that. Next time, Shiny Happy People, with the help of Lindsay Williams, suggest holding hands while praying is abuse.
I'm one of many, many, many young ladies that Bill preyed upon and took advantage of. I would walk by and sometimes he'd be like, oh, I wonder who he's praying with now. But then I couldn't really bring myself to really look in or stop and take a peek.
We will talk about her story and more next time. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe.